Pittsburgh Steelers fans, it's time once again for another thrilling episode of The Hangover. And man, we have not had many joyous hangovers this year. I'm so glad to have one. I think we really needed one. Shannon White, what is going on?
Just still basking in the glow of sweet victory.
I mean, we do have an announcement to make. I usually say Tony Defeo is on assignment if he can't make it here tonight, but I'm not sure why he's not here. All I know is he must have partied really hard because I'm sure Tony was elated with the outcome of the game yesterday as the Pittsburgh Steelers beat the New Orleans Saints. Some might say a depleted team. We're going to talk about that. But as they beat them 20-10, and 10 points is a pretty significant win these days, isn't it, Shannon?
Well, it's always significant if the Steelers score 10 points. So to beat somebody by 10 points, that was very encouraging.
So if you had a chance to listen to my show Bad Language this morning, you would have heard that I named you in the top 4 as the winners. Everybody had the Saints losing to the Steelers. That was not an issue. But the score, now you were pretty close. You were the only person that I think that got the Steelers 20 points correct. Is that right?
No, if I ain't mistaken, KT Smith had them scoring 20. He had the same score I did. I did my prediction on Wednesday night on Know Your Enemy. So, I stuck with it, the 2017 prediction. And I think Tony might even had him win at 20-13, maybe.
Tony was in the top 4. Mm-hmm. And that's something I guess I would have to go back and look at. And that's something that we can do. But I know between you, KT, Tony, and Kyle Kreis, the 4 of you came the closest. I think 2 of you were 6-point difference. Mm-hmm. And I would say that 2 others were 7-point difference. And so if you had 20-13, that's only a 3-point difference. So I
think that's Tony. I think I was 2017, me and KT Smith.
Okay, 20-17. Okay, that's 7 points off. Mm-hmm. And then I think the other guys were 6 points off. So nonetheless, that's still pretty good. And it's absolutely fantastic. I was the big loser for the week, in which I've heard that a lot, but not the way you want to hear biggest loser. You want to hear biggest loser when you lose some weight. But no, I went with the Steelers 31, the Saints 27. And Dave Schofield was laughing at me, not laughing at me, but he was needling me a little bit. He was like, I just need them to get to 20 before they get to 30. And I was like, you know what? They have the potential to break out in this game. And really, by my calculation, they really should have scored 30 points in this game. They had 2 missed field goals. Mm-hmm. That would have given you 26. And of those 4 field goal tries, one of them should have been a touchdown. I think 2 of them should have been a touchdown. But if you just get 1 touchdown and you get the 2 field goals back, there's your 30. So they were in striking distance of doing it. They just did not do it. But it doesn't matter. Who cares? All I want right now, all I want for 2 weeks before Thanksgiving or whatever it is, all I want is a Steeler win, and we got it. Because it feels so much better to come on this show because it almost feels like after a while we gotta make excuses for the Steelers losing. And then we turn around, we get hard on them, and people are like, what are you doing? You're making excuses, you're hard on them. I'm like, well, we have to look at it from all different angles. Let's go ahead and take $5 from Sean Manahan gladly. Old school Steelers back to the days of Cower Power and style. That was what I thought was a complete game, Shannon. And now first of all, thank you, Sean Manahan. Mm-hmm. Great comment. Really appreciate that. But the reason I'm saying that this was a complete game, and help me out with this, it's because not only did Kenny Pickett go from start to finish, it's his first complete game win. Mm-hmm. Because that win that he gets credit for against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers was not complete. But I know he didn't finish every single drive, and we just talked about that. But I thought he needed this for his resume to get off the schneid. How much do you think this game helps Kenny Pickett going forward?
Well, I actually wrote about it in my stock report article coming out tomorrow. That game was so vital for Pickett, his maturity and his growth, because he was not on yesterday. He didn't have his best stuff. He's like a starting pitcher that doesn't have his best stuff, his best fastball, and his breaking pitches ain't breaking, and he just guts it out for 6 innings and keeps his team in the game, even though he's not on that day. Pickett started the game, he was missing. He was missing bad, high. And he was just good thing he was missing, but he was missing where his guy or the Saints couldn't catch it. So at least he didn't throw any interceptions. But he had to gut that game out. He had to tough it out. And he found ways to contribute. He found ways to win that game. That's what winners do. We can remember many games that Ben had rough games, but they still won. If you remember, the last time they went over 200 yards rushing was when Le'Veon Bell did against the Buffalo in that bad weather game up in Buffalo. Ben had 3 interceptions that game. He wasn't on at all, but he made enough plays to help them win the game by relying on that running game. And I think Dupree had 3 sacks maybe that game, and it was a defensive game. That's kind of like what Pickett reminded me of yesterday. He played, he was in control, he was in command. One play that Harris had a big run, you could see Pickett hustling 20 yards downfield trying to throw a block to spring him the rest of the way. So, again, it wasn't a thing of beauty, but winning ugly matters too. And a lot of times that shows a lot of character, and I think Pickett showed that yesterday.
Now, I will say you could probably say that maybe he won ugly, but I'm not going to call this a winning ugly game. And the reason I'm doing that is because I just did an entire show on it. Bad language today was, getting used to not winning ugly. And the reason I'm saying that is because you got a great performance from the defense. And to me, one of the winning ugly staples is making all these mistakes and overcoming the mistakes. They didn't make a bunch of mistakes. They hardly made mistakes. They didn't turn the ball over. I mean, you can call Deontay Johnson dancing his way out of a first down, but they still got there. You can call Kenny Pickett, avoiding some sacks with his legs, getting lucky enough to have an interception drop. That's fine. But I'm looking at all the positives because you asked more than anybody. And you were, man, you're a pioneer, Shannon, because you were talking about this way at the beginning, saying that we need the Pittsburgh Steelers at this point. I think they were 1-3 when you said it, just to show progress. Was this fine progress for you?
Oh, I was very encouraged that's the best run blocking performance from a Steeler offensive line in at least 4 to 5 years. They really were precise. They're starting to develop some timing on their combo blocks. They're maintaining their blocks longer. They showed some struggles on pass protection yesterday, but the run blocking on either side, there was running lanes available. And so we said last week, we talked about that I want to see incremental baby steps of improvement. When you have that many issues on offense, you got to start small and then build off of that. The foundation is that offensive line. They made all that yesterday possible, and they showed real improvement across the line, especially, Cole and then the left side. But they showed improvement all the way across, whereas Dan Moore, according to PFF, was the highest graded offensive player for the Steelers.
Which I don't get.
Yeah, it doesn't match up with our eye test. But run blocking, he did do a good job.
Oh, phenomenal. They all did a phenomenal run blocking job. Yes.
That's something that they can build on moving forward.
They definitely can, and I appreciate you saying all that. I want to bring up Drake Johnson's comment here. They played good, but it was the Saints. What do you say to that, Shannon?
Well, it's, you can say, well, the Saints had injuries, and they did, but so did the Steelers. The Steelers have played teams like the Detroit Lions last year, the Seattle Seahawks, teams that coming into the game had just atrocious, injury problems and really low rankings on, let's say, run defense when the Steelers played them. Steelers still couldn't run the ball against them. The Saints defensively this year, they have some injuries, but they still got Cam Hayward. They still got DeMonte Davis. They've still got these guys, some star power on that defense. So what the Steelers did, it's not the Buffalo Bills. Yes, it's not the Philadelphia Eagles, but that's still a quality defense. And the Steelers did an excellent job and showed improvement. In the past, the Steelers, it didn't matter who they were playing. They couldn't run the ball. So at least they are making that improvement.
If we were grading the offensive line, and I said this with Jeff Hartman on the post-game show yesterday, I'm probably splitting the difference, but I'm going to give them that W gives you a lot more points. Getting that W is huge. So I ended up with a B- because the run game was spectacular. They ran for over 200 yards. I think the line was 99 that was set. So they almost doubled what the line was going to be for the over-under. So, all I'm going to say here is they made some great progress there. There were 6 sacks on the Steelers. How many are you going to assign to the offensive line? And how many are you going to assign to Kenny Pickett? Because Kenny Pickett got himself sacked more than the offensive line in some instances.
Yeah, I think if I was reading right, they assigned 3 to the offensive line and 3 to Pickett.
Is that PFF? I'm not sure who you going.
I seen it on Twitter, and they were saying that they said that half. I didn't know they had 6. I knew it was 5 or 6. The Saints had sacks, but they said that half of them was assigned. They blame Pickett, so I assume that the other ones was on the offensive line.
Now I'm going to go back to the question of it. Yeah, but it was the Saints. I don't care. A win is a win. And I don't even, like I said, I don't think this is an ugly win. But when you say that the Steelers had injuries too, not having Miles and Minka is a big deal.
Right up the middle.
But we found out something, and I think we knew this all along. I think we knew what TJ Watt did for this team yesterday. I think he inspired that defense, and he does so much more for that defense, because when you have a TJ Watt out there, he needs more attention than anybody else. So that frees up Alex Highsmith a little, who got his 8.5 sack on the season. That frees up. I think Ogunjobi is very good. I think he's a fantastic pickup. I'd like to see them throw a contract at him. I liked a lot of what I saw from this team. I thought there's one thing that I noticed in this game. There was a point where it was a good thing for Andy Dalton that they got a false start penalty, because Devin Bush Jr. would have murdered him. I realized they called the whistle, but when they called the whistle, the play had already started basically, and those guys didn't stop. He had a free lane to Andy Dalton, and he would have decapitated that man. Do you remember that play?
Yeah, I seen it, and he was frustrated because he knew he had that open lane, and they timed that blitz right. There was a good call at that time, and he hit him dead to right. So that actually worked in the Saints' favor.
Yeah, it really did. Something else worked in the Saints' favor as well, and it was the pass interference penalty that if I'm the Saints, I'm taking that small pass interference on Deontay Johnson every single time. And it is really a shame for the Steelers because I think that they score in the 30s, and there's no doubt then it becomes a rout if they get that one touchdown there. And here's why I'm saying that. That's a 65-yard touchdown. Deontay needs it. Kenny Pickett needs it. The whole team needs it. The fan base needs a 65-yard score. You blow the lid off of that stadium with something like that early on, and I think that changes some things.
Yeah, but you've seen that it was a slant pattern. We've all been screaming and begging for some slant patterns. And like I said, Johnson, it was a great call. You know, he would have broke that. I mean, he would have been he was behind the defense. If that guy hadn't grabbed him, that was, like you said, that was take it to the house. But
that's a smart penalty too.
Yeah, and they completed 4 slants. That's more than I can remember in the last 4 games. So there is, as they gain comfort and the running game develops, the play action, you know, will actually start to become more effective. Then we'll hopefully see them utilize that middle of the field, because they also hit Freiermuth. You know, without Claypool in there, they put Freiermuth in the slot like 40% of the time. And he looked really good working out of the slot. So,
you know me, and I've talked about this. I talked about it way before he was traded. I am a huge Chase Claypool fan. If the Steelers were going to trade anybody, I would have wanted it to be Deontay Johnson. I noticed every single pass catcher, wide receiver / tight end, whatever you're looking at, I felt like they were so much more attentive. And that does not mean that this is addition by subtraction because Chase Claypool was a problem. You know, some people are saying that. Nah, I don't want to hear that. This just means there's more opportunities for some other guys. And with that, you're going to see a better Deontay Johnson. You are going to see a better Steven Sims. He had 2 targets yesterday. You're going to see a better Steven Sims. You're going to see a much better Pat Freiermuth. And of course, and I think we started to see it, you're going to see a much better George Pickens.
Well, you see one of the plays that Sims picked up a crucial in the second half, first down.
Yeah.
He come around and he took a shot, and he still managed to fall forward and pick up that first down. And that is something that I don't know, you know, he would have got an opportunity to make that play if Claypool was still on the team. So, as you say, it is an opportunity. And I thought the Sims looked good in his limited opportunities this year. They did a lot of 2 tight end sets and a lot of, Watt. They used Derek Watt yesterday. So, Sims didn't get quite as many opportunities as I thought he would. But I think moving forward, he'll get even more.
You know, I'm in no way, shape, or form going to say that this was an A+ performance by Kenny Pickett, because it wasn't. But he made some steps forward without taking any steps back. Shannon, are you going to agree to that?
Oh, definitely. Like I said, you know, as what I talked about earlier, I think that showed a lot of growth. I think that he would have lost that game earlier in this season because he would have thrown some interceptions. Just the little things, like at least 2 times, maybe 3 times, when he got out of the pocket and it was getting ready over at the sidelines, instead of taking that ball out of bounds and maybe losing a yard and giving up a sack, he would just toss it out like he should. You know, no negative yardage plays. They hardly had any negative yardage plays yesterday.
All right, there's something that we really got to talk about there, and it's the play calling. And we are going to do that after we take a break. So I'm going to ask you all to stick around right here on BTSC and come on back, because we're going to talk about Matt Canada and his production yesterday, as well as a play caller. And we're going to talk about so much more. You got to stick around. We're celebrating today, my friends. Shannon's partying. I am partying. I mean, I'm hoping Tony's not in a ditch somewhere. I mean, have you done the wellness check that I asked you to do yet, Shannon?
Yes, he's okay. He is all right.
Okay, good. Now, Shannon, I mean, Tony asked off. He's taking care of some family, so we're just making fun. But stick around. We'll be right back after this on a Victory Monday. It's a Steeler Hangover on Behind the Steel Curtain.
Ain't the worst looking man you've ever seen. There I am on the subway train, sitting between two finest girls I...
He is our Doc Severinsen. That is the Jerry Cherry Band. And, I talked about how great he was last week. And, of course, the most humble man in the world, too. I mean, he sent me a message last week. Means a lot to him. But, no, it means a lot to us that Jerry Cherry gives us that music to go ahead and use. And you know what? If you're interested in learning about the guitar, which I am, I'm just not good at it. I'm not good at reading music. I'm not good at a lot of stuff as far as the coordination of it. But he does these tutorials every Sunday, and then you can go see them on his YouTube channel. It's really good stuff. So I love it. Shannon, I think we're the only ones that use Worst Looking Man. Any Bryan Anthony Davis podcast has Worst Looking Man, and that's that song there. And it doesn't say that we are the worst looking men. It's actually, we're not the worst looking men you've ever seen. So, but I think we need a special personalized intro with our names in it. What do you think?
That sounds good.
You're a songwriter, aren't you?
No.
I can see you. I can see you around the campfire. I mean, I'm not trying to pigeonhole you because you live in West Virginia, but I can see good hootenanny and stuff like that. I used to love that when I lived in West Virginia. I used to do that stuff all the time. So hey, guys, let's go ahead and do this, and we're going to talk about Matt Cannon in a second. But a few of you have mentioned pigeon power. And so everybody's talking about the pigeons. So, they're 2-0 with pigeons. We have not heard this reference yet. And I'm going to bring it out. And I'm going to try to bring it out in memes. I was looking it up today. And I was joking yesterday that it was P is for pigeon. That's good enough for me. But that's C is for cookie. But on Sesame Street. And Shannon, come on. You grew up with Sesame Street, right?
Oh, of course. Of course.
Yeah, because you were born. I mean, it came out in 1969. I think you were born in 1970. I was born in 1971. I grew up on that. And my kids grew up on it. And one of the big songs, remember Bert's Pigeon song?
I don't remember that.
It goes like this. Bam, 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 doing the pigeon. Dun, dun, doing the pigeon. And he's doing this crazy pigeon dance. Yeah. So I think we need to go ahead and keep on doing the pigeon next week at 4:25. It's not going to be dark when that game starts. So the pigeons have a place to go. Ron Schultz just wrote Smelly Cat. that would be great too. Love me some Phoebe Buffet. And speaking of which, you know what? I'm just going to go off topic a second real quick. Cause I just said, Ron just mentioned Friends. I'm sure you watched the show Friends. Did you ever watch Days of Our Lives growing up? I think a lot of us would probably say that we had to catch it by accident. And next thing you know, we're watching on our own because that was such a good show, especially in the 80s and 90s. Did you ever catch an episode?
I know where you're going with this. The reason why is because when you're out in the country, you had 3 channels growing up. We didn't have cable. We had an antenna. You had to turn it to get the channel you want. So a lot of NBC, a lot of Days of Our Lives during the day, because there wasn't nothing else on if you was home from school or whatever. And I know you're going to talk about the tie between Victor and Friends.
Yep.
And my favorite person on Friends was his daughter.
Yes. So the man that played Victor Kiriakis since 1985, I believe. And he filmed one that's going to come out. I guess his last appearance is going to be on Friday at age 89. But John Aniston, rest in peace, passed away today. I mean, somebody brought up, if you're bringing up Friends, I got to make that one of the greatest soap opera actors of all time. So, I got to bring that up. And you know what? Bad. How can you bring up a soap opera in that? During a Pittsburgh Steelers show. You know why I can? Because the Steelers are a soap opera. And
Rachel is always relevant.
Yes, Rachel's always relevant. Did you have the Rachel haircut back in 95? The Rachel hairstyle?
Did I?
Yeah.
No.
I bet you dated all these women that had the Rachel.
Do something, but I didn't have that haircut.
I know, I'm just messing with you. But so the days of Yin's lives is what we're talking about. So, and Ron Schultz just wrote it while I was saying it. I think we put that simultaneously. So anyways, let's get back to it. I just wanted to bring up doing the pigeon, and then I don't know. It was great how you just morph into that, but
But we got to remember how important fowls, birds are to the city of Pittsburgh.
Oh yeah,
because we have the penguins, and then we had the duck, and now we got the pigeons. So I mean, this is a good omen.
Hey, wait a second. Say that again, because you cut out a second. I know you mentioned the penguins. What else?
Yeah,
did you
then
mention?
we had the duck. Duck Hodges.
Yes. Yeah.
He was important.
Oh, you're missing some stuff here, Shannon.
Yeah, but now we got the pigeons. I mean, there's been all kind of foul.
Yeah, you're missing the big one though. You're missing another big one. The pirate parrot.
The parrot. Oh, I forgot about my buddy. Yeah, I like the parrot.
And is this? I might be completely wrong, but I think this is a bird as well. Is a condor a bird?
Yeah.
The Pittsburgh Condors of the ABA. The American Basketball Association. I think that was the last truly professional basketball team that we had in Pittsburgh. I know back in 2006 they had a CBA team for a little bit. I mean, for a cup of coffee. I think your boy Kevin Pittsnoggle had a cup of coffee with the Pittsburgh
oh, did
ABA
he? I
team.
didn't know that. Yeah.
I remember being there for the celebration of the Steelers Super Bowl XL. I was there for the parade, and my buddy was talking about how they were playing that night over at the Igloo. I guess it was still the Igloo back then. Yeah. So with that being said, let's get into it. Let's go north. And I know birds like to fly north sometimes. I know they're flying south right now, but let's go north to Matt Canada. Look, you know me. I'm a big critic of Matt Canada. I hate that I did this, but I said fire Canada a few times. Not that I'm still going to be happy if they make a change there. But I would be a hypocrite, and I would be wrong if I did not say he had a phenomenal coaching game yesterday. What was the staple of Matt Canada's game yesterday for you, Shannon?
I'm not sure if I want to give Matt Canada that much credit. Only because it would not surprise me if the Steelers didn't go into the bye. The Rudies don't fire people in season. I mean, hardly ever has that ever happened. If they didn't take some of the play calling duties off of Matt Canada and spread it, because he even said there at one point at the beginning of the bye week that there was multiple coaches that had a hand in making decisions depending on the unit and where they were on the field. And it was all kind of confusing to listen to him in that interview. I wonder if they didn't simplify some things. Obviously, their success came in because of the running game. They ran some design runs for Pickett, something that they hadn't done very much with Trubisky either. I think they simplified things, and I think that the players themselves took on more responsibility. You've seen a attention to detail out of the offensive line. You've seen, Harris said he went to the coaches and said, what can I do to help our offensive line and help us be successful? Well, you know what they're going to say is quit dancing, quit hesitating, use that, 6'2", 245-pound body and run over somebody. Well, he did that. And a lot of the things, the plays that were successful yesterday, wasn't great play design. I mean, they always send somebody in motion, just to try to see if there's a man going to go with him. But it was really back to the basics, as somebody said earlier, more Bill Cowher like back in the day. So, I criticized Canada because I don't believe in him. I don't believe he's listened to his players and communicated with Pickett and the other players to what they like and what works and what they're comfortable with. Hopefully he did that during the bye week. I don't know. I'm not in there, so I can't say for sure.
So
But
neither am I.
But I just think that based on what we've seen out of Canada's offense for a season and a half, yesterday was really out of character, especially the running game and the attention to detail. I've been critical of Tomlin in the last few weeks, but Tomlin, that's something that he does do. He's not an X's and O's coach, but he is a motivator. And it wouldn't shock me at all if he didn't have a talk with Harrison saying, refocusing him. He didn't have a talk with the offensive line and the coaches and say, hey, y'all going to have to hold up your end of the bargain on this thing, or this offense ain't going anywhere. And I think we saw the results yesterday.
So here's where I'm going with it. And look, I don't care who did it, but I'm going to give credit to Canada. And, I'm also, Mark Tobin writes, I'm not giving us a lot of credit for this win. Sorry, I am, but I respect you for not. The reason I'm going to give them credit for this win is, one, they executed. They did not make mistakes. Did they get into the end zone as much as I would have liked them to? No. But with what they were doing, they had the potential to score 30 points if they make those field. If Boswell's there, my gosh, they're making 2 more field goals most likely, unless he's too hurt to kick. So if a healthy Chris Boswell is there, that's what I'm thinking. But there's one play that I'm thinking this was Canada. I'm not sure who it was. It was trickery in a way, but when you're handing the ball off to George Pickens, who has never gone up the middle before, he said he may have done that in Pee Wee or college, or high school, but not since. And he goes, you're probably never going to see me do that again, is what he said. But it was really interesting because I'm watching that. I'm just watching Najee the whole way. I didn't even realize that Pickens was there. And there you go.
Well, I noticed that they did a couple of Wildcats that was unsuccessful. You watched guys get schemed open in offenses all across the NFL. If you go back and you watch what I watched so far, I haven't watched all of it, but there's a lot of times that Pickett didn't have nowhere to go with the ball because the guys go to their assigned, route and they settle, whether it's in a zone or a comeback or whatever, and they stop moving. And then he's back there and he don't have anywhere to go with the ball. Canada is not doing a good job of scheming guys open. He keeps doing these. They were praising him on the broadcast about doing these sprint outs with Pickett and, giving him a clear sight line like they were doing with Trubisky when he was playing. The problem is you're cutting the field in half. And on at least one occasion, they only had one guy in that route. Well, the guy was covered and all Pickett could do was just pitch it out of bounds. That's just so vanilla. I just can't give Canada credit for that victory yesterday because, it come down to the running system of the running game and Pickett didn't turn the ball over. And then the defense doing, they basically held them to 40-some yards. They held the Saints to 40-some yards in the second half. That's what won that game. I just can't give Canada credit.
All right. So Faceless Man says, I've been saying for years we need a tandem running back focused offense, which is something you got yesterday. And when Mike Tomlin asked about that, he said, hey, it's something we've been talking about. Running back by committee. That's a big step. That's a big change for Mike Tomlin, who has been bell cow for 15 years. But Faceless Man also says next 6 games are all winnable. Let me ask you this. And if we try to predict those games, and we did that last week, and you know what? A lot of people are right. It's going to change. So you can't say what's going to happen in December is going to be something that's we might be in a situation when you're playing a Baltimore team with Huntley or somebody else. If that happens, and you're playing a Bengals team this week without Jamar Chase, and with that extra game, more guys are going to get injured. But what I'm saying, say they go 5-1 in the next 6 games, and there's 8 more games left, but they go 5-1, and they end up either 9-8, or maybe they get lucky to maybe they're 8-7, or maybe they get really lucky and go 10-7. I'm not saying they are, but if that happens, does that erase everything with the organization and they keep Matt Canada? Or does this team need to continue to lose to realize that you got to get rid of Matt Canada?
Well, a lot of things coming down to execution. And as we've seen, we talked about addition by subtraction, but sometimes if you have less options, it simplifies the reads for the quarterback. And maybe it'll help Pickett to develop a rapport with 1 or 2 guys. Every quarterback has 1 or 2 guys that he has a rapport with. And then the other guys, as he goes through his progressions, he'll get them the ball. But you want to have your number 1 guy and your top 2 guys. Well, you can't really say who that is for Pickett yet. I mean, they was force feeding the ball towards Johnson because of the way the play calls were set up, and he always looks open, but he's not efficient with the high volumes of targets. So that's why it's important that Pickett develops his chemistry with Pickens and with Freiermuth. And hopefully that's going to happen. With the way the running back committee, if they will actually stick with this, say 60-40 split, and keep Harris from taking a beating, keep him fresh, utilize Warren, there's a lot that can improve over these last games. So let's say they win 5 of the next 6. It doesn't change my opinion on Canada because the talent finally figures out a way to execute. He still is not up to par of what I think the Steelers need and to actually develop Kenny Pickett. I think that the progress that will be made will be because they've simplified things and they've relied more on their defense. And hopefully with Boswell comes back, their special things. Now, if they start scoring 30 points a game, then yeah, obviously Matt Canada is going to have a hand in that. I don't see that out of this offense. I think there'll be improvements. That's what I want to see. I think everybody wants to see in the rest of this season, if you win them all, that's great. But I'm more concerned about seeing Pickett answer a lot of questions before they go into the next draft cycle. Can he be the quarterback of the future?
Well, the answer that we're still looking for is in the title. It's not the answer, it's the question. The possibility of the Steelers winning over the Saints. Do you think this game could be pivotal for this team?
Yeah, they desperately needed it. And I keep going back to that foundation. That offensive line, they looked well coached yesterday. They looked, they might not be the most talented offensive line out there, obviously, but they played cohesive, fundamentally sound, focused football. And therefore they was running lanes for 2 good running backs. And, and then when you throw in Pickett's mobility, they can have a running game. Now, of course, when they play against even better defenses, which I don't know how many of them is still on the schedule, because a lot of the defenses the Steelers are going to be playing are beat up. And, but time, like you said, by the time the Steelers they'll be in. But if they can continue to develop that running game, that's crucial because that foundation is what we've seen against the Saints, and it has to encourage all of us.
Very good. So I'm glad you said this. I think there's a possibility that this could be pivotal because, the schedule is not as grueling as what it was from the beginning. So let me ask you this. If you go back and you have this team play like this from the very beginning, play with what you saw, the kind of effort, with the scheme improving a little bit, is this better than a 3-7 team right now? If you got to start with the effort that you got in week 10.
You mean 3-6?
3-6, excuse me.
Yeah. Don't give us a loss before we get one.
Yeah, you're right. You're right, man. I'm sorry.
No, I had to pick at you.
Nah, definitely.
I've said all along that I thought Pickett won the starting position in the preseason. I thought he was more. I understand the mentality behind starting Trubisky, but at that point of the preseason, a lot of the things that have been Trubisky's weaknesses were apparent in the preseason. Whereas Pickett was more decisive, better anticipation, more accurate. And I thought that if they would have started Pickett in the beginning of the year, some of them games they lost, like the Patriots games, if he'd have been in the whole Jets game, let's just say, because by that point he would have got practice reps with the first team receivers, and he would have been farther along in his development. Even with Watt's injury, the Steelers ran some of them games, and I think they would have pulled them out with a better offense. So I think it would have been a different record, definitely, than 3-6 at the moment.
I still think that you're losing. If you played this season over with this team at this point where they are, and you started week 1, I still think you lose, even though you won. I think you lose to Cincinnati. I think it's a little bit different. I think you lose to Cincinnati. I think you go ahead and win the next 3, that being New England, Cleveland, and then the New York Jets. You're losing to Buffalo. You probably still win against Tampa. Miami, I think you win against Miami just because Pickett's not having the growing pains that he would have then. So I think this could be a whole much different thing, and I think they're setting up 2023. But why not? Why not keep on going and see how much momentum you can build right now? You did not get killed, for those draft folks. You did not get killed yesterday in the draft, because not only are we rooting against the Chicago Bears to have that high second round pick, look who beat them. So Detroit would have a better record and a better situation than the Steelers right now. So the Steelers are still drafting ahead of Detroit. Carolina won over the weekend, so you're just gonna get Houston to start winning some games. But that doesn't really matter. I could care less about the draft. I want the momentum, and I want them to pick wherever they can pick. And that it's nice to know that they have that second round pick.
It's like we said, if Pickett is the answer, or they feel comfortable, regardless, they have to build the foundations, the offensive and defensive line in this draft and this free agency period. If you look at the Eagles, what sets the Eagles apart from everybody right now is their offensive and defensive line.
Yes.
If you can put Pickett behind that type of line, if you can let Harris and Warren run behind that kind of line with the skill position talent they do have, you're going to see Pickett take a growth like Hurts did for the Eagles. He wasn't even considered the answer for sure. The Eagles considered drafting a quarterback in the first round this year. There was a lot of talk about that. So, again, now Hurts looks awesome, and the Eagles look like a juggernaut, but it's because of their foundations. So the Steelers going in, if Pickett looks like, he's a possibility even, build the foundations in front of him, and then, they're going to have more money to use than they normally do, just like last season. The more salary cap to bring in some free agents, get a key guy here and there, and you're going to accelerate that rebuild, unbelievably.
Okay, one last question, and this is one that we can't answer either because it's hypothetical, but I watched that game last week with Kansas City and with the Tennessee Titans. And I know we talked about this, and I'm not denying that Malik Willis has the chance to be a fantastic quarterback. He's going to go through growing pains as well, because I mean, I could go back and say Justin Fields is turning into a superstar in Chicago, and I think he is going to be one of those guys that's going to be super good. I know Chicago has the ability to screw that whole thing up, and I know that, but all I'm saying is right now, could you imagine what this team would look like with Malik Willis? I think it would be a mess right now, more than it already is.
Well, we have a colleague that was really, really high on Malik Willis.
Yeah,
and
Andrew Wilbar's still on warning, I think.
Yes, and I was not. And the reason why is because watching his tape at Liberty, Justin Fields played at Ohio State. I mean, he played against the top competition, and he was surrounded by great talent. Obviously, that comes with it. But he showed an ability to progress, go through his progressions, and showed some anticipation. And it wasn't just all athleticism. If you go back and you watch Willis at Liberty, he was so dependent on that athleticism. And as we know, it doesn't translate exactly the same to the NFL. And that scared me. That's why I did not want him to be the Steelers' first round selection. Because, you've got a really high ceiling, but you can also have a really low floor. And based on all that, I think he's got thrown in there because, of Tannehill's injury. And it was basically he was lost. And you've seen the difference in the ability to process and process all that information quickly. So I'm more than happy that it worked out that the Steelers got Pickett. And there was actually a couple other guys in the draft that I would have rather had than Willis because of that reason.
All right, so I want to bring up one comment real quick. Rich from the Facebook side says, don't go off the beaten path. Saints are nothing. They had no players. We'll see how good they are this week against the Bengals. Look, I respect that. I understand that. But now next week, say the Steelers beat Cincinnati, because Cincinnati's not the same, especially without Jamar Chase. If Jamar Chase is not in that game, and I think right now Jamar Chase is probably not in that game, you've got the cornerback, I believe it's Owuzie, who's not going to be in that game as well. He's definitely out for the season. So I'm saying, if the Steelers happen to win that game, Shannon, are we going to have fans turn around and say, hey, they beat the Bengals without Jamar Chase? They beat the Bengals without Owuzie. They beat the Bengals without this guy and that guy.
Oh, yeah. It's like the Vikings are, 8-1 now? And they went into Buffalo and won that crazy game. That was an awesome game yesterday, by the way. But people still doubting the Vikings, because, Josh Allen's elbow is acting up and but, it doesn't matter. Right now, the Steelers, the wins and losses, again, I'll say it, to me, isn't the determining factor. But if you see them have a strong game running the ball, and the offensive line looks improved yet again against the Bengals. You remember the first Bengals game.
Yes.
That offense was terrible. That defense did everything. 5 turnovers and 7 sacks or 9 sacks, whatever it was.
And a whole lot of luck.
Yeah, and had to give them short fields and everything else. And they barely beat them. They should have lost. And so we can see improvement. If we see that this week, that's the thing to focus on, gaining momentum for the rest of the season. There'll always be the naysayers, and we understand that. But, nobody can deny that the offensive line looked better in the running game yesterday than they had at any point for a few seasons. And that's what we want to see continue.
So you're really embracing the silver lining part of this, and the fact that that's not really a pivotal win. This is just them finding themselves, and if they can keep it going, then anything's gravy. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, that's the whole key.
I like it.
Yeah, I mean it's the key to have sustainable improvement and growth. If you're wanting to be a contender again, which they obviously are, you got to start somewhere, and you start with baby steps. And I think that was a really good step in the right direction yesterday.
All right, so Shannon, let's get on out of here. And we got to thank everybody for coming in. Look, everybody in the live chat, we can't do this show without you. I really enjoyed, Miss Tony. Tony will be back next week. But man, I had a great time with you tonight, Shannon. We had our one-on-one show, and it was really interesting. Gosh, I had another one yesterday. I had a one-on-one show with Jeff Hartman yesterday with Dave at the game, or on assignment, like I like to tell everybody. I think we're more official if we say we're on assignment. So with that being said, so thanks to all of you. Thanks to all of our colleagues here at BTSC. We have a really nice mix of original stuff. If you want to talk about the draft tomorrow, Andrew Wilbar, he's going to be talking about it with Jeremy Betts on The Fix. That comes out at noon. The Cutting Room Floor with Jeffrey Benedict. He's going to be talking about some really great stuff, looking at this game and looking at the Steelers going forward as well. So there's 8 more weeks of this NFL season. They are going to make it interesting like they always do. So please stick with Behind the Steel Curtain for all of your Pittsburgh needs. Shannon White, I'm going to say this to you. I always say it to Tony, so I'm going to ask you. Actually, I'm going to say it to you. Just when you think you've got all the answers, my friend,
we keep changing the questions.
I think I'm going to steal your line. Woo! Do it, you do it better, Shannon. Do it. Let's